Good day, Grade 7. Today's discussion will be about Science 7, Quarter 4, Module 7, Relate Tilt of the Earth and the Seasons. The content of this video is taken from the self-learning modules produced by the Learning Resource Management and Development System of the Schools Division of Bulacan. Objectives relate the tilt of the Earth and the seasons. At the end of this module, you are expected to 1. Define season. 2. Describe the axis of the Earth. 3. Explain how the tilt of the Earth affects the season. 4. Relate the tilt of the Earth and revolution which causes seasonal change. And 5. Appreciate the effects of the two seasons in the Philippines. What I know. Choose the letter of the best answer. Write the letter of your choice on your answer sheet. See pages 5 to 7 of Quarter 4, Module 7. What's in? In the previous lesson, you learned that different parts of the Earth receive different amount of sunlight. The sun's rays strike most directly at the equator. Therefore, the area receives more solar energy and becomes warmer. On the other hand, the latitude which is closer to the poles receive less solar energy and the area becomes cooler. Do you still remember the 5 lines of latitude? Let's have a simple review on that matter. The names of the 5 lines of latitude with their corresponding values are listed on the table below. Use them to label the latitude on the representation of Earth. Number 1. Found at 66.5 degrees north, Arctic Circle. 2. At 23.5 degrees north, we have the Tropic of Cancer. 3. At 0-degree latitude, we have the equator. 4. At 23.5 degrees south, we have the Tropic of Capricorn. And at 66.5 degrees south, we have the Antarctic Circle. Review questions. Number 1. What are the 2 lines included in the tropics? Answer: Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. 2. What countries live in this zone? Answer: tropical countries. 3. What kind of climate will be experienced by that place? Answer: tropical climate. 4. What zone is found between the lines of the Tropic of Cancer and Arctic Circle? Answer: Northern Temperate Zone. 5. What zone is found between the lines of the Tropic of Capricorn and Antarctic Circle? Answer: Southern Temperate Zone. Tropics is part of the Earth between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Tropical climate is experienced by countries in this area. In the tropics, we have 2 seasons, wet and dry. The Philippines belong in the tropics. Northern Temperate Zone is the place between the Tropic of Cancer and the Arctic Circle. The Southern Temperate Zone is the place between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Antarctic Circle. Areas in the Temperate Zone experience 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, and autumn. Polar regions are areas within the Arctic Circle and Antarctic Circle. They experience a very cold climate. In polar regions, we have 2 seasons, winter and summer. There is a relationship between the latitude of an area and the amount of solar energy it receives. What's new? Read the comic strip and tell whether you also experienced the things done by the 2 characters, namely Kuya Juan and Maria, in dealing with the changes happening in their place. A change which is about to happen. Hi Maria, that smells so good. I prepared a cup of hot chocolate for you, Kuya Juan. It's getting colder, isn't it? Yes, it's cold and the Christmas season is coming. I got this sweatshirt for you. Oh, thank you, Kuya. How sweet of you. I remember a few months ago, it was April, when we were drinking ice-cold buko juice and were wearing sando and shorts. We also visited Baguio City because it was too hot in our place. We went also to a beach in Pangasinan and enjoyed swimming. But since it's cold season, we can do some indoor activities such as playing songka. I wonder, Kuya Juan, the reasons behind those changes. I noticed that there is a pattern in the time that the changes happen. Kuya Juan, look! I also noticed the changes in the environment from Tita Aurora's photos who lived in Canada. Yes, Tita Aurora experienced winter that time. And another picture of her in summer outfit, she also experiences the changes. You're right. That's a good observation because we are experiencing seasonal changes. Kuya, can you help me understand why do the seasons change? Yes, of course. I'd love to. Come, let's use this module given by my teacher. It really helped me understand the reasons for the occurrence of the seasons. Wow, I'm excited, Kuya. Like Kuya Juan and Maria, have you experienced doing those things as response to seasonal changes? Well, you're not alone. Many of us are adapting to this phenomenon, even plants, animals, and other creatures. Same with Maria. I know that you're wondering about the reasons for the occurrence of these seasons. You are invited to join the discussion of Kuya Juan using this module. Lesson 1. Tilt of the Earth. Are you familiar with this object? Do you have any idea on what this object represents? This object is called a globe. A globe is a spherical model of Earth. Observe the position of the Earth's axis on the globe. You will notice that the Earth's axis is not upright but tilted. The Earth's axis is tilted from the vertical by 23.5 degrees. What is an axis? Axis is an imaginary line passing from pole to pole. These poles are the North Pole and the South Pole. The Earth's tilt is maintained upon its rotation. What is rotation? Rotation is the spinning of a planet on its axis. In the previous module, we have learned that the Earth rotates for 24 hours and it rotates in a counterclockwise direction. One complete rotation of the Earth is equivalent to one Earth day. Now, what do you think is the effect of the Earth's tilt? The tilt of the Earth has an effect on the amount of heat received by the surface. The tilt causes some parts of the Earth to receive direct rays from the sun. Look at the illustration below. It shows that the direct rays of the sun hit areas to the north of the equator. So in this illustration, we could see that the direct rays of the sun fall on the northern hemisphere. What are direct rays? Direct rays are rays of the sun which hit the ground at 90 degrees. The rays are vertical to the ground and strike at high angle. It means that greater amount of solar energy is received by each square meter of the ground. On the other hand, other parts of the earth receive oblique rays. What is oblique? Oblique means slanting or inclined in direction or course or position, neither parallel nor perpendicular nor right-angled. Oblique rays are rays of the sun which come in an oblique angle. There is lesser amount of solar energy received by each square meter of the ground. Since you have now the idea on the effect of the tilt in an unequal heating of the Earth's surface, let's try to answer the following questions. Use the illustration below. Number 1. What part of the Earth will receive direct rays? So in this picture, we could see that the direct rays of the sun fall in the northern hemisphere. 2. What part of the Earth will receive oblique rays? So the oblique rays of the sun fall in the southern hemisphere. 3. Which place would be warmer? So in our discussion, we said that the direct rays of the sun causes the warming of the surface. So it would be warmer in the northern hemisphere. 4. which place would be cooler? If oblique rays of the sun fall on the surface, then that surface would be cooler. So it would be cooler in the southern hemisphere. Lesson 2. Why do seasons change? In the previous lesson, you have learned that the tilt of the earth has an effect in the heating of its surface. There are places which will be warmer and other places will be cooler. The tilt of the earth results to season. Do you have any idea about season? Probably, you observe the changes in our environment and you're also wondering the reasons for the occurrence of the seasons. But first, what is season? A season is a period of the year that is distinguished by special climate conditions. The four seasons, winter, spring, summer, and autumn, follow one another regularly. Each has its own light, temperature, and weather patterns that repeat yearly. Season is caused by inclination of Earth's axis of rotation to the plane of its orbit and its revolution around the Sun. From the activity tried this, we can say that the northern hemisphere, which receives direct rays from the Sun, is experiencing summer season. Since the southern hemisphere receives oblique rays, it is experiencing winter season. Are the seasons experienced by both hemispheres remain the same throughout the year? Well, you will find out in the next discussion. The other motion of the Earth that affects the seasonal changes is its revolution. How does the Earth move during revolution? The Earth revolves around the Sun following an elliptical orbit. What is revolution? Revolution is the motion of the Earth around the Sun. Planet Earth takes 1 year to complete one revolution, or to be exact, 365 and 1/4 days. This motion makes the Earth to be in distinct locations at different times of the year. The next activity will help you understand the location and position of the Earth during its revolution around the Sun. Study the illustration below. Use the model to answer the guide questions. Figure 9. Locations of the Earth during its revolution around the Sun. Guide question 1. In what month is the North Pole tilted toward the Sun? Answer. During June, the North Pole is tilted towards the Sun. Next, guide question number 2. In what month is the North Pole tilted away from the Sun? Answer. During December, the North Pole is tilted away from the Sun. Number 3. In what month or months is the North Pole neither tilted toward nor tilted away from the Sun? Answer. During the months of September and March, the North Pole is neither tilted toward nor away from the Sun. In June, the northern hemisphere is tilted toward the Sun and receives direct rays from the Sun. Therefore, during this time, it is summer in the northern hemisphere. On June 21, the northern hemisphere has its longest day and shortest night. The place is experiencing summer. Summer solstice happens when the days are longer than nights. At the same time, during the month of June, the southern hemisphere receives oblique rays from the Sun. It is winter in the southern hemisphere. The southern hemisphere is also experiencing winter solstice. What does winter solstice mean? Winter solstice happens when nights are longer than days. So in this illustration, we could see that the direct rays of the Sun fall in the northern hemisphere. So this means that the surface would have a longer time for heating up. Thus, the season in the northern hemisphere will be summer. Now, in the southern hemisphere during the month of June, oblique rays of the Sun hit the surface. Oblique rays means that the surface would be cooler. So in the southern hemisphere, the season is winter during the month of June. But what makes each hemisphere experience other seasons? As the Earth reaches the other side of its orbit, the direct rays shift from one hemisphere to the other. That's why in December, the northern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun. What is the effect? Let's take a look at our illustration. So during the month of June, the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. So the northern hemisphere experiences summer, while the southern hemisphere experiences winter. Now, after 6 months, this is what would happen. During the month of December, the northern hemisphere would be tilted away from the sun, and the southern hemisphere will be the one to be tilted towards the sun. At this time, the northern hemisphere is no longer receiving the direct rays from the sun. It has a cold temperature. It is now winter in the northern hemisphere. How about in the southern hemisphere? Can you identify the season? The southern hemisphere is now experiencing summer season since it receives direct rays from the sun. So in this illustration, we could see that the oblique rays of the sun fall in the northern hemisphere. That is why this place experiences winter. The direct rays of the sun fall in the southern hemisphere during the month of December. That is why it is summer in this part of the earth. Now, take a look at the illustration. You will notice the other two locations and positions of the Earth. In September, the Earth's axis is neither tilted toward nor tilted away from the Sun. It is the time when the Sun's direct rays reach the equator. The northern hemisphere will experience autumn, while the southern hemisphere will experience spring. So in this illustration, we could see that during the month of September, the sun's direct rays fall on the equator. During this time, the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere receives equal amount of solar energy from the sun. In the northern hemisphere, it is autumn, and in the southern hemisphere, it is spring. In March, the direct rays of the sun also reaches the equator. But this time, the northern hemisphere is experiencing spring and it is autumn in the southern hemisphere. So during the month of March, the sun's direct rays fall on the equator. The northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere receives equal amount of solar energy. It is spring in the northern hemisphere and it is autumn in the southern hemisphere. September 21 is the date when the daytime and nighttime are equal. It is called autumn equinox. March 21 is another date when the daytime and nighttime are equal. It is called spring equinox. So during the months of September and the month of March, the Earth's axis is neither tilted toward nor tilted away from the sun. During this time, the northern and the southern hemisphere receives equal amounts of solar energy from the sun. The sun's direct rays fall directly on the equator. That is why during September and March we have equinoxes. The seasons change because the direct rays of the sun sometimes hit the northern hemisphere and sometimes hit the southern hemisphere. Since you're now familiar with the four seasons, I am sure that as of this time, you're thinking of our own seasons. How many seasons do we experience in the Philippines? You will find out in the next lesson. Have you watched television series or movies shot in other countries? Do you notice some winter attire and summer get-up? It's because they have winter and summer seasons. There are parts of the earth which experiences four seasons. How does it happen? During December, when it is winter in the northern hemisphere, only the temperate countries will experience the winter season. How about the tropical countries? What season will they experience? The Philippines is located in the tropics, so therefore, during the month of December, we do not have winter. We only experience the cold season. What is the reason for this? Because the Philippines is located in the tropical climate zone, wherein it receives direct rays from the sun. Our country also receives solar radiation all throughout the year. So in our previous discussion, we said that the Philippines is located between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Now this area is called the tropics. In the tropics, the direct rays of the sun hit the surface. And for this reason, only two seasons are recognized here, the wet and the dry season. According to PAG-ASA, or Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration, the Philippines experiences two seasons in a year. These two seasons are the wet and dry, which are experienced in different places at varied time. Wet and dry seasons in the Philippines are characterized by the following. For the wet season, it occurs from June to November. It brings too much rainfall. It is caused by the southwest monsoon or habagat. The dry season occurs from December to May. It has a cool dry season beginning December to February, which provides cold air. It has hot dry season from March to May, which gives us a hot and humid air. So there are only two seasons in the Philippines, wet and dry. The wet season occurs from June to November. The coolest months are from December to February. The dry season is from December to May. The hottest months is March to May. The average temperature in our country is 26.6 degrees Celsius. What's more, Independent Activity 1. What's in an Earth's tilt? Identify what is being asked by the pointed arrow. Jumbled letters inside each box will provide you a hint. Independent Assessment 1. What's a word in a tilt? Crossword puzzle. Fill the boxes with the missing letters of the word being described across or downward. Independent Activity 2. What's the season? Identify the name of the season in the northern and southern hemisphere based on its location as the Earth revolves around the sun. Names of the seasons are provided below. Write your answer on your answer sheet. Independent Assessment 2. What are the reasons for the seasons? Choose the correct word or words to complete each statement. Independent Activity 3. What's in a dry and wet? Study the pictures below, categorize the scenario, situation, or activity as to what is observed during wet and dry seasons. Write the letter that corresponds to your answer. Independent Assessment 3. Am I wet or dry? Identify the following characteristics as to dry and wet season. What I have learned. I hope that you enjoyed reading this module and learned important key concepts about seasons. Complete the statement based on what you learned in the lessons. Kuya Juan provided one for you. The underlined statements refer to what you have remembered and learned. Seasons are caused by the Earth's tilt in relation to its revolution around the sun. The Earth rotates on its axis and always points in the same direction as it revolves around the sun. The seasons change during the Earth's revolution because the direct rays of the sun shift from northern hemisphere to southern hemisphere and vice versa. In June, when the North Pole is tilted toward the sun, the northern hemisphere receives direct rays from the sun, making the place warmer. It gives the northern hemisphere the summer season. At the same time, the southern hemisphere receives oblique rays. The place is cooler and experiences the winter season. So in this illustration, we could see that during the month of June, the northern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun. That is why the direct rays of the sun fall in the northern hemisphere. So the season experienced in the northern hemisphere is summer. In the southern hemisphere, it is tilted away from the sun, therefore, only oblique rays of the sun fall in this part of the earth, and the southern hemisphere experiences winter. In December, when the North Pole is tilted away from the sun, the northern hemisphere receives oblique rays and experiences winter season. At this time, the southern hemisphere receives the direct rays and experiences summer season. In March and September, the North Pole is neither tilted toward nor tilted away from the sun. Direct rays strike at the equator. Equinoxes happen within these months, and both hemispheres experience autumn and spring alternately. Temperate countries experience 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, and autumn, while tropical countries have only 2 seasons. The Philippines is a tropical country which experiences wet and dry seasons. What I can do. We are all affected as seasons change. As humans and stewards of nature, we need to help our environment in dealing with the effects of the seasonal changes. In the next activity, you are invited to show your love and concern to our environment and to our country. Choose from topics 1 and 2, make a collage on your answer sheet, explain your work in 2 to 3 sentences. Your collage will be graded based on the given set of rubrics. The topics are: number 1, conservation of water and electricity during dry season. 2, minimize the causes of floods and flash floods during rainy season. After making your collage, explain your work in 2 to 3 sentences. You may use this sample format. For what I can do, you will be graded based on the following category: attention to topic, design and neatness, creativity, and explanation. Assessment. Choose the letter of the best answer. Write your answer on your answer sheet. See pages 29 to 30 of Quarter 4, Module 7. Additional activity, performance task number 4.7. Make your own illustration of the reasons in the occurrence of seasons. Maria can give you an idea on what to draw. Use a separate sheet of paper for your drawing. Your illustration will be graded based on a given set of rubrics. So for your hint, you can draw the Earth tilted on its axis while it is revolving around the sun, and then label them. For the additional activity, you will be graded based on these categories: reflection and knowledge, basic skills, layout and proportion, and labeling. Science 7, Quarter 4, Module 7, relate tilt of the Earth and the seasons. Answer the following on your answer sheet: what I know, what's more, independent activities 1, 2, 3, independent assessments 1, 2, 3, what I have learned, what I can do, assessment, and additional activities. The additional activity will be your performance task number 4.7. Upload your answer sheets in PDF format in your Google Drive folder. The path is Science 7, Quarter 4, Module 7, or send them in JPEG format to my messenger. Thank you for attending our Science 7 online class. God bless you all.